Hey guys, happy Thriving Thursday. We're talking about commitment tonight. Come on in here so we can talk about commitment. I'm actually going to give you guys a list of things I think we do wrong when it comes to this topic of commitment. And then I will share how, or maybe a better way to go about commitment, having that conversation, and all of that. I actually made notes today, so I'm prepared for y'all. Hey V. Let me pull my notes up. Happy Thursday. Thanks for joining me. Trying to find my notes. I thought about this topic because, well, first I was on Reddit again. They have some pretty interesting stories on there. And I saw this post. Let me see if I can find it. Hey, no. I saw this post on Reddit, and she was asking for advice because she hadn't dated in a long time. She got this new guy that she's dating, and she doesn't know like what to do about commitment if they're together. I think like her mom came over or something like that, and like he kind of played it off like, oh, that's just my friend or something like that. And she was asking like, is this normal? What is she supposed to do about commitment? So we're gonna talk about commitment tonight and how to have those conversations. Hey, Maisha. Do you have a glass in your hand tonight, Maisha, or are you still at work? I think you're at work. Let's talk about commitment. I'm trying to give y'all a few seconds to get in here. Let me pull my list up. I actually made notes for y'all today. Maisha, what you drinking? I think I left this out too long. Let me. A wine tasting. What? Where did you do a wine tasting? Oh, right. You had to do a tasting. I remember that. I'm drinking Verdicchio. I opened it day before yesterday. I've never had this grape, but it's from Northern Italy, which is my favorite. So that's why I bought the bottle. Verdicchio. It's okay. I should have finished it when I first opened it though. What you drinking? You over there cooking right now? So let's talk about commitment. I actually have this conversation a lot, right? I've had it recently with two women. Both of them. You taking a break from drinking? Hey everybody, happy Thursday. So I had this conversation pretty recent, like within the last couple of months with two women. Both of them have been seeing a guy, not the same, like it's two different. A break from cooking? You're not allowed to take a break from cooking. So about this whole commitment thing. So I had this conversation recently with two different women. Both of them were dating this guy, and it had been over, like, I think for one it had been over a year, the other one had been over 2 years. And when you talk to your friends, or I would say like, how's your boyfriend doing, and both of them, they will always say, that's not my boyfriend. And I'm like, well, why isn't it how is it not your boyfriend? Like, one of them, they had been dating for, I think, like 2 months. The other one, they had been dating for almost a year, right? They do things together, they go out, all of that. But neither one of the women would acknowledge that they were in a relationship. Like, they would all say, like, he hasn't asked me, right? And so this is actually like a real thing that, until a man explicitly asks, right, a woman feels like she's on the fence, they're not together. And so I was working with them and we were processing that conversation. And I'll get back to them in a second. But I think that this is a real thing, right? And I think a lot of people try to make somebody commit to them. And so we're going to talk about that too. Before we start talking about how to actually have these commitment conversations, I want to talk about things that I feel like we do wrong when it comes to commitment. So I actually wrote a list. I've told you I was prepared for y'all today. So the first thing I think we do wrong when it comes to commitment is wanting a commitment too early. And this is whether commitment in terms of boyfriend and girlfriend or commitment in terms of your fiance, you're, waiting for a ring. So I think that's like one of the biggest mistakes that people make is asking for a commitment too soon or wanting a commitment too soon. And this one I don't necessarily understand because I'm a little bit different here. Right? I know women that want to be in a relationship within like a month or 2 months. Somebody like me, I try to hold out as long as I can, right? I need to make sure that I really like you. I need to make sure that your friends don't look better than you. I need to make sure, it's just a whole lot. And I might be an extremist because I try to hold out as long as I can, right? I don't understand the rush and, asking for a commitment or asking somebody to be in a relationship with you. So I think that's one of the biggest things that we do wrong, is asking for or wanting a commitment so soon. And I had a conversation with somebody, a similar situation, her and her guy, whatever, over a year. And how's your boyfriend? That's not my boyfriend. He hasn't asked me. And now they actually had a conversation about exclusivity and all of that. And I'm going to get to that in a second. But she wanted the title. But I asked her, well, what would the title do? How would that change things? And she didn't have an answer for me. So I think that, I don't quite understand that one. I understand we all, we were made to be companions. Nobody wants to be alone. I get all of that. But what's the rush? Right? I just feel like that's one of the biggest problems or one of the biggest things that we do wrong when it comes to asking for a commitment. Even once you are already boyfriend and girlfriend, and wanting or expecting a commitment soon thereafter for a ring and marriage, right? Right. I see it all the time on social media that, a guy knows within 3 to 6 months if he wants to marry you, or 9 months. And again, what's the rush, right? I don't think that there is a certain time frame on it. I think there are certain things that you should know about yourself and your partner and the relationship that you guys have or are building. But I don't think there's a certain time frame on it. So I think, wanting a commitment too soon is a big mistake. I think another mistake that we make when it comes to this topic of commitment, and I kind of just talked about this, that is being too concerned with an actual title, right? Like I said, I had that conversation. Her and her guy had, they've been having conversations about the future and all of that, but she actually wanted the title. And when I asked her, what would the title do differently? What is it? Stop, Ben. And she couldn't tell me. So I think that we get too wrapped up in a title, what are we? Are we boyfriend and girlfriend? All of that. I think the better question or the focus of that conversation should be exclusivity. Ben. Because I think that you can have a title, be boyfriend and girlfriend, and not necessarily be exclusive, right? You would hope so, right? And I think the assumption is that once we have these titles that we will be exclusive, but I think that should be, an explicit conversation. Like, are we exclusive? Like, can I see other people? Which I think that you should date multiple people until you have that conversation about exclusivity. So I think we get too wrapped up on titles and, wanting somebody to post and the matching pajamas around Christmas. Like, I just think we get too wrapped up and we don't focus enough on, exclusivity and the actual relationship. Let's see what else I wrote. I think another mistake that we make is, for women, being on his timeline, right? We sometimes, we sit and we just wait for him to ask us to be his girlfriend or ask him to, give us a ring. But I feel like, you about to get down. I feel like we shouldn't necessarily be on his timeline, right? You can have your own timeline, and then you should also be evaluating the situation and not just waiting for him. Because it could be a situation that, you say you want a relationship with him, but there are things that you don't like about him, or there are things that you aren't sure about. So I think you definitely should have your own timeline. Whatever that timeline is going to be, I'm not going to judge you. Somebody may be able to make your timeline. But I would say, even if you have a timeline, I would not give ultimatums, right? Either be with me, or I'm going, marry me, or I'm out of here. I think a better way to have that conversation is, I would like to be married by whatever date, or I would like to be in a relationship by, like, men are not dumb. They're not as dumb as people would have you to think, right? If you say this is something that you want and he wants to be with you, he's going to do those things that are required to get you and keep you, type of thing. So I think don't be too concerned about his timeline. You should have your own timeline and things that you are also looking for in a partner, and evaluating the situation at the same time. Oh, this last one. This last mistake is definitely near and dear to my heart. I got to sit up on this one because I'm going to be completely honest with y'all. And this is a mistake that I made. I think a big mistake we make when it comes to commitment is just going with the flow. Right? You're okay because things look and feel like a relationship. Y'all spend a lot of time together. Y'all going on vacation. On the outside looking in, it looks like a relationship. And so you never actually have that conversation about, where are we headed and all of that. And I think that is a huge mistake. And I'm talking from personal experiences. I had a situation that I was just going with the flow. Right? It felt good. We knew that we were exclusive, even though we didn't have a conversation about it. We knew that things were exclusive. Me and family, we even had conversations about the future and, our kids would, and, this would be, where would you want to live? Like, type of thing. Like, so we had conversations about the future. And actually, you know what? He brought up the whole thing about titles. And it was me that said, like, why do we need a title? This time, I wasn't trying to put it off. That wasn't the situation, but I had that conversation with him too. Like, I am more concerned about the friendship and relationship that we are building than a title, right? And so I feel like he was trying to ask me, but after I said that, he didn't ask me explicitly. He said something like, I bet if I asked you to be my girlfriend now, you would say yes. And I said, not necessarily, right? I am not I'm not necessarily caught up on titles, right? The nature of the relationship is much, much more important to me, right? I'd rather us be best friends and not have a title than have a title and be in a shitty relationship. So he actually brought up the thing about titles, and I was like, yeah, no, titles don't really mean much to me. Like, I don't really care about titles. So we were just going with the flow, and now it's about 9 months. Yeah, we like 9 months in, so we deep into this. You can't tell me that this is it, right? As we always think, like, this is my forever person. All of that, I'm going with the flow. I had no reason to think, we weren't on the same page, all of that. We're in 9 months in, and it was time for me to move for a job, right? And so I tried to have a conversation about, what we were going to do long distance. And it kind of turned into a, like, go do what you got to do. Like, don't wait for me type of thing. And I'm like, okay. Me being hard-headed. Well, I wasn't necessarily being hard-headed, but I moved, but I still tried to hold on to him, being honest and transparent at that time of my life. I had moved to a new city. I was in a job that I didn't like. I wasn't getting paid enough money, and I felt like he was like pushing me away. So like I was actually depressed. I found out later, was diagnosed. And so I still tried to hold on to him, right? Because that was still my person. We spent the last 9 months seeing each other almost every day, right? This is my person. You can't tell me that we're not in a relationship, even though we don't have the titles. And whatever turns out, he moves to where I am, not necessarily for me, but he gets a job here. He moves here. He comes, he stayed with me for a little while. Things were different, but I'm like, whatever. We still going with the flow, right? And me going with the flow and not having a conversation, we definitely were not on the same page, right? Here I am going with the flow, thinking that this is it, and he had me taking him to the airport to see his new girl, right? And I think that is a huge danger when it comes to just going with the flow, right? I could laugh about it now, but that, like, when you're going through that situation where you feel like this is your person, y'all in a relationship, but you just haven't had that conversation, or no need to have titles. Again, I still don't care about the titles part, but without having an explicit conversation and just going with the flow, I think that is a huge mistake. And I have this conversation with women all the time. And I was talking about 2 people in particular earlier, that one of them had been talking to a guy for about maybe like 2 years. The other one had been talking to a guy for almost a year. And every time I would mention their boyfriend, oh, that's not my boyfriend. He hasn't asked me and anything like that. But they're at this point. So the reason that I was talking to them is we were talking about how to have a conversation about commitment, right? So that's what we were working through. But it's like, I think it's really, really dangerous to just go with the flow. Because if you're just going with the flow, whenever it is convenient, then you're not in a relationship. So I think that those are the biggest mistakes. So I gave y'all 4 mistakes that I think we make when it comes to the commitment thing. So wanting a commitment too early, being too concerned about titles, and instead of titles, I think the conversation should be about exclusivity and what you guys are building. Another mistake is being on his timeline and kind of like giving him ultimatums. Like, there's ways and all of that to talk about it, and I'm going to go into those. And then going with the flow. Going with the flow is like that was we had a great relationship, but that was definitely one of the things that I learned. At the end of every relationship, I try to figure out, like, how did I get here? Or not just the relationship, but any type of situation or whatever where I am not liking how I feel. I try to sit and think about, how did I get here? Right? How did I end up with these feelings? My feelings being hurt usually is the situation. And what can I do to make sure I never, ever, ever feel like this again? right? That heartache is a different type of pain. And so I never want to make the same mistake twice. So I think that was my biggest takeaway from that last relationship is like, you got to have explicit conversations about commitment. Y'all still with me? Y'all kind of quiet tonight. Bentley, you are in the way. Come on, sit right here. You can sit right here. So those are the mistakes that I think we make when it comes to commitment. So let's talk about, how do you get him to commit then? So how do we make sure that we aren't making these mistakes, and how do we make sure that, he'll commit? So this is the one thing that I want to tell you. When it comes to making somebody commit, you can't. There is nothing that you can do to make a man commit to you, or a woman, whatever. There's nothing that you can do to make somebody commit to you, like at all. They have to be willing. That's how you ever see, I'm sure you have, or at least heard of a situation where a guy has been with a woman for years, never asked her to marry him. They break up, he finds somebody and is engaged in like less than a year. That's why, right? You can't make somebody commit to you, right? They have to be willing to make that commitment on their own. But I do think that there are things that you can do to make sure that you are not wasting your time. What did you try? You said you tried that and he broke up with me. What did you try? I don't know what you're referring to. What did you try? So, like I said, I don't think that that's not a thing. I told him I wanted to be married and he wasn't ready, but we got back together and are married now. But I think that that's great that you guys got back together and you're married now. But even if you go and talk to somebody about, I want to be married by this age, and if they're not on the same page and they want to go, right, that is what you want. You don't want somebody that's going to stick around and waste your time. Hey, Janice. Like, you just don't want somebody that's going to stick around and waste your time. So I think that is one thing that a lot of women, or people in general, men too, fear, right, is that fear of rejection. But if somebody doesn't want the same things that you want, right, I think that is very important for you to know. And the sooner that you know that, the better. So let's talk about some things that I gave y'all, 4 mistakes that I think we make when it comes to commitment. So I'm going to tell you some things that I think would actually help you and make sure that you aren't wasting your time. So I think the first thing is when is the first time you should bring up this subject? In my opinion, I think this conversation needs to be had, this subject needs to be brought up in the very first conversation that you guys have. I think you need to bring up this subject, listen to me, before y'all even meet in person, before you go on your first date, when y'all on the phone talking. I always encourage you to talk on the phone so you can see what the vibe is like. But this is a topic that has to be, that it should be one of your first questions out of your mouth, is about commitment, right? And so this is what I recommend you ask. What type of relationship are you looking for? And I think that's not necessarily to tell you that this is your person, right? Like, let's say they say, I want to be married, right? They're dating with intentions. And so are you, right? That's not to mean that that is going to be your husband or that's going to be your wife. That doesn't mean that at this moment we are committed. What it does is it tells you the effort that you should put forth, right? Or no effort at all. If I know that I am looking for a serious relationship, I am looking to date with the intent of being married, and a guy comes and tells me, oh, I just want to have fun, I'm not looking for anything serious, see you later, bye, right? I'm not even going to waste my time with that. And I know we do it, right? I've done it. But you gotta listen. Like, I made that mistake before too. Oh, he doesn't want to get married. I could change his mind. He just never had somebody love him right. I've been there, right? And then years later, when he breaks up with me, right? A lot of my friends were upset with him, and I'm like, well, I can't really be upset with him for that reason, right? He told me that from the beginning. If I continued after that, that's on me. Like, I feel like, my biggest thing, I'm going to say this probably every week, every time we talk, right? You have to take accountability for the part you played in your heartbreak, right? And so if he told me years ago that he didn't want to get married ever, and I did, why would I still talk to him? And I mean, like, for years. Like, we broke up maybe like once or twice, on and off. For years. Sis, that man told you he didn't want to get married. You cannot change. I don't care how good your sex is. I don't care how good you love on him. I don't care how much you take care of him. If he doesn't want to get married, you are not going to change his mind. All right. So, I think that is, people think they can change people's mind. And it's like, you can't. Only change comes from within, right? You may inspire somebody to change. You may encourage them to change, but that's not something that I think I would be willing to try and change somebody's mind about. If you explicitly tell me, and I've had this, right? I keep running into guys that are prioritizing their career. And I've run into this issue multiple times. And at first, right, it didn't make sense to me. Like, you can have both a relationship and, your career. And the last few guys that, I ran into didn't think so. So I can't play with myself like that, because what we do is, you can fall in love with anybody. All it takes is some opportunity. Even if you don't like the person, if you spend enough time with them, you are going to start to like them. You're going to start to love them. That's why you got to be careful about who you keep around. And so what we do is, oh, I know he doesn't want to be in a relationship. I know he doesn't want to get married, but I don't have anybody right now, so I'm just going to talk to him until somebody else comes along. You're lying to yourself, sis. Like, you're lying, because you're going to spend time with him. Yeah, he wasn't that cute in the beginning, but the more time you spend with him, oh, he a little cute. He all right. I might be able to deal with that, when there was a reason that you said no from the beginning, right? Stick to that reason. So I think this conversation about commitment, the first time it needs to be brought up is like one of your first few conversations. And again, you ask, what type of relationship are you open to make sure that you guys are on the same page. So long as you're on the same page, just remember that it doesn't mean that is going to be your person. Like, if you do both want to be in a relationship, or you do both want to get married, it doesn't mean that that's going to be that person. It just means that you should be able to expect the same type of effort, right? The person that doesn't want to get married, the person that wants to get married, and the person that's just having fun is not going to give you the same type of energy, right? And so that is the point of knowing when to have that conversation. So that's the first thing that you can do to make sure that you are not wasting your time. Happy Thursday, everybody. Thanks for joining. We are talking about commitment, how to get him to commit. Well, I already shared with you that it's nothing that you can do to get him to commit, but there are things that you can do to make sure that you aren't wasting your time. And so I'm going through that list. I also went through like 4 things that I think, 4 mistakes I think we make when it comes to this commitment thing. So you'll have to go back and watch the replay. But let's see, the next thing that I think you can do to make sure you're not wasting time. So after you know that you want the same type of relationship, right, and you guys are getting to know each other, I think it's important to do check-ins. I think it was like a couple weeks ago, I posted a reel with like 5 questions that you should ask your partner. And I told you to save those questions so that you can come back to them, right? I think you should check in with your partner every 3 to 4 months, or at least every quarter at least, right? And when you check in, I can't remember all the questions. You're going to ask like, what can I do to be a better partner? What type of support do you need from me in this season of your life? What's something that I don't know about you? It just check in, like, see how, you are doing, but also add to those questions about the future, right? And it doesn't have to be are we getting married? It could be something as simple as, based on what you know about me right now, do you want to continue this relationship? Right? And you may not like the answer, but you need to know that, right? And the sooner that you know it, the better. All right, so ask them, based on what you know about me, are you willing to continue this relationship? Are we still on the same page about working to see if this can be something long term? Right? I think you got to do that check-in. And maybe you don't ask that question every 3 months or every 2 months. But I think it's important to check in every once in a while, every 6 months, at least once a year. I don't know, right? When you either doing relationship maintenance and thinking about what's working and what's not working, right? I think that is something that, you got to talk about. When you are doing the check-ins, so we talked about this earlier. When you are looking for a commitment from being single to being in a relationship, I know some people feel like they're single until they're married. So I'm not disputing that, I feel like that's specific to the couple. But when you are looking for a title, if that's something that you're into, or you want to be, see where this relationship can go, I think the conversation has to be around exclusivity. And I think that should be an explicit conversation. And just, I think a lot of this comes down to communication. And people are afraid to talk and have difficult conversations. And I used to be too. I used to be I was shy growing up, but when it came to communicating in relationships, I would never speak up for myself. Well, this is any area of my life. Like, I didn't really speak up for myself. I never set boundaries. Like, I always put myself last. Like, oh, I don't want to ruffle any feathers. I don't want to start an argument. It's not a big deal. I'll get over it, right? I was this person. People look at me now like, I can't believe it. What happened is, sis got tired of her feelings being hurt. It took one person for me to go with the flow, and it backfired in my face for me to realize, oh no, sis, you need to be asking questions. Explicit conversations, right? Like, it doesn't matter how they feel about having it. Like, it's just, you gotta have these conversations. And for me, I know that I don't know what to call it. I just know I don't want my feelings hurt again. I don't know about y'all. Y'all might be cool with it, but I don't like it because it takes me a long time. I don't love that easily. But when I love you, I definitely love you for real. And so I need to make sure that I'm loving the right person for the right reasons and all of that. So I always need to know if I need to shut this down. So I think you got to have that conversation about exclusivity. There has to be an explicit conversation. Another question that I get a lot, how long should you be dating before you expect a title or have this conversation around exclusivity, right? I mentioned earlier, like I was talking to somebody and they wanted a title after like 2 months. What? Now, I'm a little bit different, and I was talking about this earlier. I like to hold out to the very last minute. I need to make sure that this is it, right? I need to make sure your cousins don't look better than you, that your brother don't look better than you, that you, like, I don't know. So I think that there is not necessarily a time frame as to when you should make that next step of commitment. But I think that there are some things that you should know before you are willing to make that commitment. For an example, I think you got to know if y'all want the same type of relationship, right? And this goes back to the question that I said you should ask, like the very first conversation, right? Like, what type of relationship are you open to? But I think before you make a commitment, now you need to make sure that it is definitely y'all want the same type of relationship. I recently met a guy, right? And he doesn't believe in marriage. I want to get married. So it's not going to work out. Like, he one of those, like, it's just a piece of paper. Everything's going to my daughter anyway, so what's the point? Thanks for letting me know, right? So that is one thing that you should definitely know before you commit to somebody. You need to know if you have the same familial goals, right? What type of family do they want? Do they want kids? Do they want more kids? I feel like we're all at this age where most people, already have kids. And it's like, do you want more kids? Do they want more kids? Right? That is definitely, if it's not on your list of deal breakers, it needs to be. Like, that's a huge thing. Like, if one person wants kids and the other one doesn't, it's not going to work out. That is going to be a reoccurring issue in your relationship. And you'll probably, whoever, is going to be resentful, whoever gives in, either whether you refrain from having kids or you do have kids and they didn't want to, one of you guys are going to be resentful. So that's another thing that you need to make sure before you commit. Another thing is, can they give you what you need in a relationship? And this goes to, you got to make sure you know what you want and need in a relationship. I found that a lot of people do not know exactly what they want and need in a relationship. I am actually working on some products, a program, a class, to help people really figure out, like, what is important to you in a relationship. Like, not just what's important or what do you want, but what a healthy relationship looks like for you, because it's going to look different for everybody. Right? And so I am working on a program now that is going to help you identify what a healthy relationship is for you and how do you create that and maintain it. So it's very important that you know what's important for you. For me, I can tell you that one of the may not be number one, but one of the two most important things that I look for in a partner is emotional support. Right? It's just something that is important to me, right? Somebody else, they might want or need financial support, or they might want and need, I don't know, right? So it's very important that you know exactly what you need in a relationship to feel loved, to feel safe and secure. Like, what will make you feel safe, secure, and loved in a relationship? And is this person doing that for you? Right? So you gotta be able to tell whether or not he can give you what you want and need in a relationship before you make that commitment. And I think on the reverse, you gotta be able to be honest with yourself and say whether or not you can give them what they want and need. I've definitely told people, like, you need something, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't have the capacity to give that to you right now. Like, I can't. Right? And so I think that you got to be honest with yourself. And if it's truly something that they, you've realized that they need in a relationship, and you can't do it for them, you got to be honest about that. I think you just got to look at your list of non-negotiables. Do y'all have y'all ever written out, like, your list of what you want from, like, what you want your ideal partner to look like? Like, do y'all have that list type of thing? Let me know if y'all have ever sat down and wrote out a list, or if if you did, like, how long ago did you do it? Because I don't think there's anything wrong with having a list, but I don't necessarily think people put the right things on their list. I don't think people put the right things. Have y'all ever sat down and wrote a list out? I don't know if I've ever sat. I have. After the last relationship, like, I was trying to write out like what I wanted the same and what I wanted differently. So I have sat and wrote the list. But I think people, so you've never written your list. So I think it's important to write a list, because you got to know what you're looking for. You won't know if you found it if you don't know what you're looking for. But I think your list should only include your non-negotiables. Not those things that you are or should be willing to compromise on. Your list of non-negotiables, I think that's all that should be on your list. All right. And so when I work with people and I help them create this list, right, they need to know what they're looking for. What I tell people to do, write down everything that you want in a relationship and a partner. Like, absolutely everything that you want in a partner. And after you wrote everything down, whether it's you want him to be 6'5", you want him to make 6 figures, you want him to be a gentleman, you want him to, whatever it is, like, write down exactly what you want your ideal relationship to look like and your ideal partner. And then I tell them to go back and rank the importance of those things, like on a scale of 1 to 10. Right? And anything that you give like a 9 or a 10, maybe an 8 to, that's what goes on your list of non-negotiables. Right? Those are the things you do not compromise on. Right? Those are the things that you have to make sure that your partner has before you agree to commit to them. Anything else that's a 7 or below, those are things you can compromise on. And I don't even think they should be on your list. It's okay to make note that, like, I like men in suits, right? But it's not a 9 or a 10 on my list. So if I meet a guy, if he wears suits that fit, it's like a bonus. But I'm not going to cancel somebody out just because, he doesn't wear suits. So I think before you make that commitment to somebody, you got to make sure that they hit everything on your list of non-negotiables. I don't think that you should be entertaining anybody if they don't meet your list of non-negotiables. Because I think that's when that's how we get in trouble. We think, oh, I'm just going to talk to him until somebody else comes. And then you look up and you love this person, or you just too distracted and you miss the guy that God had for you. So I think you gotta, make sure they hit your list of non-negotiables. I think the important thing is asking, based on what I know about this person right now, am I willing to spend the rest of my life with them? Right? That's not to say that things won't come up later, but based on what you know right now, are you willing to, pretty much be with this person for the rest of your life? So I think that those are the things that you should think about before you commit to somebody. I don't think it's like a time thing. I think it's a substance thing. And I think that if you are contemplating how long you wait, once you are in a relationship for a ring, again, I don't think there is a time frame. Like all this, he knows within 6 months or 3 months or 9 months. I think that's crazy. Right? He didn't even see you in all 4 seasons yet. Right? And I think it's not just about him being willing. Sometimes there are other things that play a role in it. I think here's one huge, this is what the contention is usually. I think that men want to be in a certain place before they take on that role of a husband or a father, right? Usually includes, they want to be somewhere financially, maybe somewhere in their career. They just want to make sure that they are stable enough to, do the job. And then women come and say, oh, I don't care about that. I love you for you. I don't care about how much money you have and all this, that, and to third, right? And I think that causes a huge issue in a relationship. But I think if he is saying that, there are some external things, he financially or whatever, I think you got to respect that. You have to respect it. And I don't think it's up to you to say, oh, well, that doesn't matter, because it matters for him. Now, again, if you are looking at if you have a timeline and, you're getting to the end of that timeline and you have expressed your timeline to him with, in a respectful way, you can always walk away from a situation. Like, you're never wrong for walking away from a situation if you don't feel like he's giving you he's meeting your timeline. You don't have to say it in a mean or nasty way. You don't have to give him an ultimatum. It's look, I want to be married by whatever date. It doesn't seem like we're going to meet that. I'm out of here. Now, of course, there are some guys that are not honest. Like, I know somebody that he told the girl that he wanted to get married, and then when she checked in again, I think it had been like 2 years, he said, oh no, I lied, I don't want to get married, and now I'm going to jail. Because why would you play in my face for 2 years, right? So those type of situations, you can't really, there's nothing that you could do to prevent those, right? Especially if somebody is telling you. I mean, I guess you could look at their actions, but I think they were like living, or he was living with her. And like, I felt so bad for her. Like, you really played in my face for 2 years. But I think the only thing you can do about that is maybe check in sooner, pay attention to actions. But if he's just going to be a liar, you can't do anything about that. But yeah, then again, I think, before you ask for or expect a ring, again, you ask yourself, like, can I live with the things I don't like about this person forever? You got to assume that this person is not going to change, that what's here, this is what it is. Are you satisfied with what you've seen over the last however long you've been together? I think a timeline as to how long you want to date a person is okay, but not a specific age you want to get married by. Okay, so yeah, so the whole age thing, I'm past that, because clearly I gave God 2 deadlines in terms of my ages. I told him 25, and then I gave him an extra 5 years and said 30. I turned 30 a long time ago. And yeah, so I agree about the age thing. So when you say the time frame, like, I guess what would, like, I really don't understand, like, this. I don't know that I've ever said, like, oh, I need to be in a relationship by this amount of months. Like, what's the thinking behind that? Like, can you give me like what you think is a reasonable time to wait, and then like the reason behind only waiting that amount of time? I don't know about that part. But if you are, in a relationship and you would like to be married, and so you're waiting for him to kind of propose, and it's like, how long should you wait? Right? I think you also got to be, doing your own assessment of the situation, right? And I just said, you got to ask yourself, if this person never changes, can I live with the things I don't like about him for the rest of my life? Now, some of y'all lie and say you can, when you know you can't, because you want this idea of being married. And I talk to couples all the time, and with their issue, we're trying to work through them, and this is an issue that has been here from the beginning. All right, so I think you definitely gotta, be honest with yourself. Marriage sounds cool. It's a lot of work, from my understanding. So you just want to make sure that you are doing your due diligence and like not ignoring the red flags, right? Of course, there are things that are going to come up in a relationship, right? People change, people grow, right? You might outgrow each other. I think, that stuff you can't help. but I just don't want you out here ignoring red flags and then being surprised or upset, when your feelings are hurt. Let me see. I feel like that's most of my notes. I just think, yeah. Okay, so someone might say, okay, we are dating, but I'm not willing to date longer than 5 years because I want to get married, and past that time, they are playing in my face. Okay, I'm with you. The time frame is obviously going to differ according to the person. Yeah, okay, so now I'm with you. I understand what you're saying. So something like that, like 5 years, yeah, I get it. I thought you were going to say something like maybe like 12 months or 6 months or something like that. And then I was, yeah. So, yeah, I think that is extended. And I think that goes back. You got to know what you want in a relationship, where you are in your life. And being clear with him about what you want. One of those young ladies that I was talking about earlier that had been, talking to this guy for some time, but was unhappy about him not explicitly asking, and she's saying, I want to get married. And I'm like, have you communicated? I mean, I'm sure he knows you want to get married, but does he know about your timeline? Like, you can't expect him to adhere to a timeline that you have never shared with him, right? And there are ways to do it respectfully. It doesn't have to be an ultimatum. You could just simply say, like, this is where it is, this is where I am, this is, all of that. But I think that it has to, when it comes to commitment, I think you got to make sure that you are being honest and truthful about what's in front of you and what it is you're committing to, and whether or not that person can truly give you what you want and need in a relationship, and vice versa, whether you can give that person. So I think what happens when you have been going with the flow, right? Let's say you've already been going with the flow, and it's been some time, maybe 9 to 12 months, a year. So what is it that you do at this point? And the two ladies that I mentioned before, my recommendation to them is you have to ask. Like, you have to bring the subject up. If it is bothering you that you guys are doing all of the relationship stuff, right? You're going out every weekend, you're spending the night, all of that. This is your person. You know that you're exclusive, or you're pretty sure that you're exclusive. I think the only thing that you can do at that point is to ask and have an explicit conversation. And when I was talking to one of the ladies about it, she was nervous to do that, or she didn't really want to. And they both kind of had the same position. Like, they want a guy that is sure about them, right? They don't want to have to be the one to bring it up. They want a guy to know they want her and just come and pursue them and be really straightforward about his feelings. And I get it, right? That definitely sounds ideal. My only issue with that approach is, again, you are on his timeline, and you are playing, at that point, you're playing defense and not offense. I think if you bring it up, now you're playing offense, and you can, plan accordingly based on his response, right? I know it can be a difficult thing. Rejection is hard to accept, but again, you need to know that sooner rather than later. Like, I'd rather ask you now before it's 2 years later and now you tell me no and you done played in my face for 2 years, right? So the sooner you know that, I feel like the better. And I don't think that this has to be, like, you don't have to make it a serious conversation, right? It can be something as simple, do I have a boyfriend? Oh, I just need to know before I go on another date. You still like me? Right? I don't think it always has to be such a heavy conversation. Right? I need to know before I go out with somebody else. Are we exclusive or what? But yeah, I just don't think there's any way to get around this subject. And I know it's difficult, but you got to be honest and mature enough to have these difficult conversations, especially if it means it's going to save you from your feelings being hurt and, you know, all of that. So that's all I got for y'all. If you missed it, you can go back and watch the replay. I gave you 4 reasons or 4 mistakes I feel like we make when it comes to commitment. And then I talked about things that you can do. Even though you can't make anybody commit to you, there are some things that you can do to make sure that you aren't wasting your time. So that is all that I have from you tonight. Anybody have any questions, comments, concerns about commitment? Questions? It's only 7 o'clock. I need to go write. I was supposed to be writing 2 chapters of my book today. I wrote 1 paragraph. So I might need to go back to the computer and write some more. Anybody else have any comments about commitment? Any questions? Y'all was real quiet on me tonight. Nope, y'all good? Okay. Well, I will see y'all probably next week. I'll think of another topic. Maybe like, I've been planning a class about being an overthinker, like why you overthink things and how to stop doing it. I think that might be our topic for next week. How to stop being an overthinker and why you are. Yeah, so if there's nothing else, you guys have a good night. If you think of anything else after we hang up, feel free to send me a message and we can continue the conversation. Other than that, you guys have a good night.